So once again, welcome to the Unshakable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and lots of gratitude that we welcome Corboy, who's come to share on the topic of love and tolerance for up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open the room up for the Q&A portion of the meeting. So with that, Corboy, it's over to you. I love you, brother. Thank you so much for your service.
I love you too, brother. Welcome, everyone. My name is John Corboy. I'm a grateful addict and alcoholic, and I used to be a hateful addict and alcoholic. The topic of love and tolerance came to me in meditation a couple months back. And when I messaged it to my friend, he said that he had just had a moment where he didn't show much love and tolerance. And, is it a coincidence that that's the topic I messaged him at that time? It's beautiful how this program works. I want to say welcome to anybody new. If you're here for your first time or you're struggling right now, I hope you stay. I have learned to get rid of the obsession and craving and insanity of my addiction by being here and following the 12 steps and the design for living within the literature with help of a sponsor and this beautiful fellowship in God. And I've also learned to love people even when I don't like them. I thought about this earlier today in meditation this morning, and what is love? First, I was thinking of a night at the Roxbury, but then I was thinking, to me now, love is God. And if I don't find God and lean into God, I can't experience true love, true unconditional love that these rooms have shown me, and the people I've met in Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous and all over the world, such beautiful spirits. So if you're someone who struggles with that, my experience has been that if you don't find God, you won't get to experience the true beauty of what unconditional love really is and what it means for you and the people around you. And I thought about too, all of the people in my life that consistently showed me love and tolerance that were likely the people that I hurt the most. And they didn't have a program to follow to help them do that. They just did that naturally. And I had to learn that, because when I came here, I was so spiritually sick and so lost, so broken, so scared, so afraid, so empty. I had to learn how to do that again. I remember it, right before the step 10 promises in the literature, it says, love and tolerance of others is our code. And I looked up the definition of code, right? And it's a system or a way of speaking or communicating with others. And I feel like ultimately that's what recovery is about. Once I get rid of that obsession to use substances, and I no longer rely on anything that alters my mind for satisfaction or relief from pain or whatever it might be, escape, fitting in, I get to truly heal myself and humble myself in a way to be able to operate with love and tolerance to the best of my ability. Now, I'm definitely human, and I would say that the majority of people think of me as a bit of a friendly giant. And when I do allow anger to get into me, I'm capable of some very hurtful, dangerous things. And I don't like how it feels, and usually immediately regret whatever happens as a result of that. Over the holidays, I'm sharing this because I think it's important to share how human we are. my friend Donna J, often demonstrates that for me, you know. And we had done some renovations for a man's mother right before the holidays, and all of us were relying on this money to help pay bills and get everything together, and the man didn't pay. And I ended up showing up on his front doorstep and having a very firm chat with this man, and ultimately scared him, really, without threatening him, just by my presence and the way I showed up there. Um, and in the moment, it felt good to have that power and control and feel like I still have that capability of being that person I used to be. But when I reflected on it afterwards, I mean, there's lots of times I shorted people or owed people money and didn't make that right, or took advantage of people or manipulated situations. And he's one of God's children, right? And I cannot expect anybody to give me love and tolerance if I'm going to be holding people in contempt and carrying judgment towards other people, especially with the things that I've done in my life. I don't have any right to do that. And everybody's on their path doing what they do, and there's a reason behind it, and they need to learn what they need to learn before, hopefully they find their way to the sunlight of the Spirit. But that's an example of even studying spiritual literature weekly, prayer and meditation, actively sponsoring other members, volunteering at a recovery home and a detox center, doing community work, trying to start a community foundation to help people who are struggling with homelessness, addictions, mental health. I can still go back to this monster of a version of myself if I'm not operating in love and tolerance. I feel like the best way for me that I've experienced in my life to demonstrate it is to demonstrate vulnerability. Again, which is another reason why when you hear me share, what I try to do is really share from the heart and share openly and honestly. So if I drift from the true purpose of my life to be useful, kind, patient, loving, and tolerant towards others, then I slip back into patterns and personalities, of a person I no longer wish to be. It's so funny too, because so many times I expect love and tolerance is not necessarily just putting up with somebody, but I don't want anybody to judge me. And when somebody upsets me, like in the moment, I don't want to hear anything about being loving and tolerant towards them. But when it's me that needs that, when I need forgiveness or I need some grace, I want that immediately. But I've had to train myself to ask God to help me show that to people when I'm in those moments. And when I don't do that, I'm in trouble. And I'm trying to be a demonstration to inspire other people. And I had a reputation before, where there is a level of intimidation and fear involved with wronging me or whatever it might have been. And I've worked hard and honestly with a lot of humility over the years through recovery to develop a new reputation where I've grown from that. And it really only takes, I'm in a small community as well, so word of mouth, it doesn't take much for somebody to develop a reputation very quickly. And I felt divinely inspired to move back here after being away for 9 years to try to build something beautiful in the community in an altruistic way that really just tries to help as many people as possible. And God has given me so many opportunities to help people that are suffering. And there is no shortage of suffering anywhere in the world. particularly where I live. And, one moment of allowing myself to drift from that code and go, with what I feel is best and not look for guidance or not open up to anyone about the situation or what's going on. And, I jeopardize all of that. I jeopardize the safety and well-being of my children and their future. I jeopardize my job security, which I never had when I got here to worry about. I jeopardize my ability to be useful and to be an example of what love and tolerance looks like in the real world when I practice the principles of this program. And, if it was my friend telling me this, I would tell them, it's insane that you would risk all that after all that you've gone through and overcome to be where you are today, to be willing to throw that all away, in a moment of anger or frustration or whatever it is. Impulsivity. I mean, that's been one of my biggest demons over the years. Reacting impulsively, not thinking things through, not seeking guidance. And, I've burned bridges. I've destroyed relationships without that restraint of tongue and pen. I've said and done things that I cannot take back that have caused harm to people that I may never have an opportunity to repair as badly as I wish I could. And, growing up, I wasn't shown much love and tolerance. And so I had to learn that. And I learned that when I came into this program. I learned what I need to do to get to a place where I can peel away the layers of myself, to heal the things I need to heal, to realize the things I need to realize about myself, to reflect enough consistently throughout each day to do a thorough look back through my day at the end of each evening as well. All of these things have helped me identify patterns in my behavior, the way I think, the way I treat people, the way I react, the way I respond. And I've been able to look at the root cause of things and really explore that with the help of a therapist, with the help of medication, with the help of recovery, other people in this program. And it's helped me to become a better person, a better partner, a better friend, a better parent, just a better human being overall. But that disease, that centers in our mind, that sickness, that soul sickness that we have when we get here, that we can still have if we don't do what we need to do to get rid of that, causes me to throw all that away. And I think about things that are going on in the world today that are heartbreaking, even just to think about, let alone I cannot even imagine having to experience it. And, we have this beautiful life in front of us where we have this opportunity where we've been given a solution to our suffering. No matter what our story is, there's a way out, and we found it here. And there are so many people in the world who don't know that it exists. And I still take it for granted at times. I still don't take it as seriously as I should. I still judge people. And I still struggle to tolerate certain people in my life, whether it be family or friends or acquaintances or people that I run into. And the world itself, the state of the world and things that are happening. I struggle with this balance of how do I be loving and tolerant towards people who are doing cruel and atrocious things to other people? And I guess I don't know how. I need God's help for that. And because I wasn't shown any example of this, right, as I grew up, I feel like I was at a disadvantage where what I thought was love wasn't healthy. What I thought was love was toxic. What I thought was tolerance was um, abusive. So I had to unlearn all those patterns, and I couldn't have done that had I not opened up my heart to allow the light to come in. There was so much darkness, and there's so much darkness still that lurks there. But the more I stay in the light, the more I lean into God, the more I lean into trying to be useful and helpful to other people, the more awake I am, the more I'm asking for guidance, the more I'm checking in and reflecting and holding myself accountable and actively taking steps to continue to uncover what I need to uncover to really realize, what patterns have developed and what are the things that I struggle with the most that I need to rid myself of to be useful. One of them is lust. I've had definitely had a lot of embarrassing, humbling moments as a result of that. It's an easy go-to for me to eat a bag of Oreos, if I'm having a bad day, and just lose myself in television and close everybody off and isolate and, keep my phone off and all those things. I can still resort back to those behaviors. And what I've learned is to be able to take value from the mistakes I've made, but I don't have to continue to repeat them if I'm really willing to do the work to grow and recognize the things I need to come to realize about myself to do that. So that the more thorough I am, the more honest I am, the more open-minded I am. These things that we hear over and over again that I'll probably be annoyed with myself for even saying out loud right now. Those are the things that have allowed me to open up my heart, to be fearless and love people authentically and genuinely and actively try to show up with love and compassion and kindness, in every situation that, God puts in front of me throughout the day. I'm working right now with a friend of mine who's struggled for a long time, I was sharing at a meeting earlier, and he was snorting pills off the console of his truck. And, in the past, I would have joined in or been angry about that. And I'm not angry. I'm just so sad that he is struggling and suffering and feeling like he needs to fill himself with a substance to find some type of peace or respite from what life is doing. And at the same time, I see a light in him and how wonderful of a father he is and how much he loves his daughter, that's grown up into a beautiful young woman. And I see how he takes the time with everybody to be patient with them throughout the day and teach them how to do things properly and safely. And despite his addiction and his struggles and the things he's challenged with, he still manages to be this person demonstrating light. And I can recognize that. And, in the past, and there have been times, where I would look at somebody in that situation and think like, wow, what a mess that guy is. What a fall down. The things that people used to say to me, I'm a junkie, I'm a deadbeat. All those things, were true, but they weren't able to see all the good that was still there. It was just under the darkness. It was just waiting for the light to come in, to come to life again. And, after I shared, he looked over at me and he said, man, I needed that. Thank you. And, again, it just reminded me that I'm responsible for demonstrating love and tolerance. And I shared at a meeting on our lunch break, and I wasn't prepared at all. I'm exhausted. I worked right up until the meeting started, and I hopped in my boss's work truck and tried to share a message of hope. I got off work yesterday, and I just wanted to lay down, and I had people calling me that needed me, and people sacrificed so much of their time for me when I first came in here, and still to this day, there are people that work full time and have families and things keeping them busy, and they still make time for me whenever I call. And I've been taught that in order to keep what I have, I have to be willing to try to help as many people as I can. And that means answering the phone, and they say service is never service is inconvenient, is often inconvenient, but it's necessary. Um, so many things cross through my mind, thinking about the topic of love and tolerance, because I I believe it's been the biggest test is to try to demonstrate it in my own home with my children in moments where chaos has happened. There was a point in time where my son's struggling with addictions and mental health, and he was in the psych ward. He had attempted suicide. He had overdosed, managed to survive. And then he grew increasingly aggressive, and, I'd have to barricade myself, and my daughter's in the room, and call the police. And there was a night where for a few hours I was waiting for the police to arrive, and my daughter was scared, and her brother was, running around the house, hitting me and screaming at me and pushing me on the ground and throwing things and breaking things. And I mean, the best I could do in that moment was just not react, not hurt him. And I haven't heard from him in months, and it still hurts even when people ask me about it. I've compartmentalized it quite a bit, because I need to just accept the situation, even though I don't like it, because I can't find peace if I don't do that. And the beautiful thing about love and tolerance, and what I've learned here in recovery, and what I'm able to do now, is I love him unconditionally, and I will continue to try to be the best version of me I can be. And should he ever enter back into my life, I will welcome him with open arms and do whatever I can to be loving and tolerant and useful to him. We're in the midst of a court battle right now, and his mother wants custody, and I'm not resisting it. I'm not fighting it. I don't have a lawyer. I don't want to seek a lawyer. I just want to accept whatever they feel he needs right now and let him walk his path. That was not me, 15 years ago. I've been sober since February 22nd, 2012. I spent a lot of time dry and miserable, not doing the 12 steps and wondering why, I didn't get the results of the 12 steps that everybody else got, why the step 9 promises and step 10 promises hadn't come true, but I hadn't done the steps yet. But now today, those things are normally the way that I live my life, and I operate, and I communicate with the people around me. I share that because we go through difficult things. And again, I try to be as vulnerable as I can be. And I hope that if you're going through something similar, that it gives you a little bit of hope, just to know that no matter what's going on in your life, you don't have to allow it to impact who you are and how you're treating other people around you. If I stay consumed in that, I can't be present with my other children. My niece is 16 years old. She told me a couple months ago that she was pregnant. I've been bringing her to different appointments, and we're in touch every day in the process of adopting her. It gives me the ability to be present with her and to show up and be useful and kind and patient. And there's so many things going through her mind at that age, being a young woman in the world today. I can't imagine how difficult it is. And then, the added hormones of the pregnancy, and just stressors in her life. And I'm not allowing myself to be overwhelmed by my own situation. to crumble and be in this position where I'm not able to be useful to her. You know, I'm able to show up. She knows that I'm reliable. She knows that I'm present. She knows that I care and love her. I care for her, I care about her, and I love her. She knows she's supported, and she's never had that in her life. And I'm able to do that because I no longer rely on a substance to provide me with some temporary relief. And I'm not running from anything. I'm doing the work I need to do to keep myself in a good headspace, a good heart space. And as much as I may feel exhaustion from how busy life gets, I find that when I'm putting my energy into other people to love them the way that God would love them and serve them the way that God would want me to, I find I am given almost like a superhuman strength where although I may be physically tired, spiritually I am so full that I do not feel the exhaustion that I would have felt in the past if I were as busy as I've been. And I'm still thinking of things that people have done that upset me, even after all these years. And I don't believe that it's coincidental that I run into these people. But I know today to ask God for help to be kind, loving, and tolerant. You know, this is a sick person. Help me have what I need to be useful and to be of service here. There was a guy at the gym that I ran into a couple months ago, and years ago he had threatened to kill my son and had abused his mother and done a whole lot of just awful, atrocious things. And my immediate thought when I saw him was not to hurt him. My immediate thought was to ask God how I can be kind, loving, and tolerant. And I attempted to approach him, and it didn't go well. But I was able to let that go and really just wish him the best. And behind the scenes, through another friend we have that's a mutual friend, I've offered to do things that I can to help him find employment, through my employer and in a variety of different ways where I'm not looking for credit. I'm not looking for accolades. I'm not looking for him to hear about it or find out about it, to maybe get along with me or whatever. I'm not seeking anything other than being loving and tolerant and wanting what's best for him, because I've learned that I need to live my life that way. I don't need to, I guess. When I don't live my life that way, it's not much of a life. And I spend a lot of time feeling miserable, and I spend a lot of time angry and anxious and spiraling, and I spend much less time in the moment and much more time in the past or worried about what's coming next. And I feel like that's where the beauty of life is. In this moment right now, with all you beautiful people that are here, all these beautiful spirits in this room, what a wonderful life. I think about, where some of us have been and where we used to be before, and what a beautiful opportunity it is for us to be able to make the most out of the pain and the trauma and the sadness and the despair and the desperation, that we can now look for those people and seek those people and notice those people and be willing to extend a hand to those people and demonstrate that they are loved even when they feel like they're not worthy of it. There's no greater gift on earth, I don't believe. I think of when I got here and where I wasn't welcome anywhere and I had a couple numbers on my phone, my dealer and my bootlegger. And I think of today, and there are days where I just can't even keep up with all the messages I've received from people all over the world, just reaching out to see how I am, or showing love, or sharing meeting info, or something, some spiritual thing that happened, or some book that they think I should read, or checking in and asking how my son is, or I'm still praying for you and your son. All these beautiful messages and these beautiful people that have been put into my life and my world. And I find the more that I operate in a loving and tolerant way, the more that I'm given opportunities to practice it. But at the same time, there's an energy that it just seems to bring the right people into my life to guide me through and to lift me up, to knock me back on track when I'm stumbling, to hold me accountable. And it feels like the most natural high I've ever experienced in my life. When I see people transform and I see miracles happen and I see people light up and finally start to believe and become willing to follow this path, and I see them continue to transform and grow and enhance their spiritual program when they came in here like me, not believing in God, not willing to believe in God, and now they're studying literature and helping share a message and demonstrating it and helping people in their community and becoming, better fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers, and finding ways to be useful and helpful to other people. It is inspiring to me, and it is beautiful, and it is priceless. It is precious. It is an unbelievable gift to be here with all of you right now. I think the Spirit wants me to stop there, Isaac. I love you all. Thanks for letting me share. Thank you for being here, and thanks again for giving me the opportunity.
Hi there, I'm Phil. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I've been attending meetings in my local area, so I'm fairly new to it at the last 6 months. But just to say, just what an inspirational share that was from John, because I'm still in early days of it, and I'll give you some examples of how I've been. But to see how you've gone since 2012, I think you said you've been sober, all these opportunities to help others that you've had, and you dedicated your life to that. That is an inspirational story, something that I can certainly aspire by. For me, if anybody had told me 2 or 3 months ago I'd go to church and say prayers, the step-3 prayer, asking God to direct my thoughts and remove my defects, and I would have laughed and said, "You've got to be joking." But I've got a really good sponsor who's shown me the way. I had a real spiritual experience in a chapel in Norwich here in England, where as soon as we started saying a prayer, because my sponsor was with me, I just felt this cool breeze on my face. And afterwards, I had to message my sponsor and say, that happened, and that was just unbelievable. Then he sent me a Hebrew word, and he said, it's Spirit of God. And he said, just look at the description, and it was a cool breeze. So that, I mean, it's never happened again since, but it doesn't matter because that's all I needed, basically. But the bit I was going to get to about love and tolerance, which John shared, was for me, it's when you use the step 7 prayer and ask God to direct your thoughts. I find myself, I can go off down rabbit holes on my thoughts about thinking about people negatively. And after I say that prayer, I find myself pulling myself up straight away. It's almost like God is directing that thought and immediately pulling me up.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Do you have a question at all?
Yeah, it was just to say to John, thank you for that brilliant share. I just wanted to share my own initial thoughts on that as well. So there wasn't a question as such. But thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Next, we've got Lara. Would you like to come in with your question?
Ah, come on, no, it wouldn't let me unmute. I am Laura, I'm an addict. Thank you, John, for that. I'm just want your view on this, really. I'm in treatment. I've only got a week left, but I'm absolutely fucking breaking it. And I'm not like scared to going out there, and I'm not really fearing using and drinking. I'm fearing losing what I've got now and losing my connection as such, because I've had a few shit days in here But then I've had two really good ones, and then it's gone back, and it's like I'm praying harder and harder and trying to draw closer and closer to God to try and make me not feel like that. But when it's happening like for 3 days, I'm then on panic mode, thinking, what if this feeling isn't going? I don't know if I'm overthinking or if this is a stupid question. But do you get any more further than that and have really bad long stretches of this shit feeling? Thank you.
Thank you for being vulnerable. It's a great question. You know, what came to me when you were sharing is you're being given an opportunity to heal yourself, to be a service to other people. And I definitely was not the version of me I am today, you know, fresh out of my first few months in recovery. So I think you need to give yourself grace and just be grateful for the moment you're in, that you're clean right now and you're on a good path. You're clearly on a better path than where you were before, that you're going to have that opportunity to be useful and be kind and loving and tolerant to the people that are in your life. God will bring those people to you when you're a demonstration, and it's only through practicing it, you know, the routine and the design for living that we have, and using the tools, that I've been able to be present and get to that place. And I often get it wrong, but I try to get it right. And when I start to drift outside of the moment I'm in, you know, I can easily spiral and worry and get anxious. And I think the important thing to do is just what you've done right now. Just be vulnerable and let people know, talk it through. And my sponsor would tell me, you know, pray and call another addict. That's what he would say to me. So thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Lara. I'll move on to Danny in just a second, but we've got a question in the chat. The question is, how do you find God after, or in those moments after you've let the anger in?
Well, sometimes I have to make a really awful mistake and suffer the consequences of that mistake before I bring myself to be at a place of desperation. You know, and as many times as I've said to other people, follow these tools, follow this path, use these tools, there's many moments in my life where I haven't. You know, I can remember particularly a couple years back really struggling with the end of a relationship. And I was asking God to kill me in my sleep because I was just in so much heartbreak that I felt like I could not breathe and live my life anymore. And thinking back to it, it's just insane to me that I allowed it to go on as long as I did. You know, and I remember all I thought about was myself and how I can get this girl back, and, you know, reading these relationship books and sending her insane emails, you know, in the middle of the night. And, you know, like, I remember actually calling Young, like top of the morning in the UK. And I said, I don't know what to do after like 2 weeks of this ridiculous behavior. And he said, John, you know exactly what to do. Please do it. I love you. I have to go to work. And you know what? I got down on my knees and I said, God, I need your help. I'm heartbroken. I don't know what to do here. I need this pain to go away. And I said, not only for me, but I need it for my children and other people. I said, you know, I'm just in this world of pity right now, and I can't be of any use to anyone if I stay like this. And I know that, and I know you'll get me through this. I trust you'll get me through this. You know, so again, I really just feel like, especially, you know, when I first came in, that genuine prayer of sincerely seeking help from God and then waiting for the answer. Does that help me always in the moment? You know, when somebody, you know, does something to hurt one of my children or one of my friends, you know, right in that moment, that's where I need to continue to practice that pause. And it's only, my experience has been only through practicing that pause, only through practicing those prayers, only by taking those deep breaths and walking away for a moment and asking God for guidance and help is how I've continued to respond in a more healthy, loving way in those situations. Again, just practice. Thank you for your question.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, John. Next, we have Danny. Would you like to come in with your question?
Thanks, Isaac. Hi, guys. I'm Danny. I'm an addict. And thanks very much, John, for your beautiful share. My question is to you. Well, it's sort of a two-part question. What's the most difficult place for you to practice love and tolerance? And what do you do in them situations to practice it? Thanks very much, mate.
That's a very good question. I have 3 children, one of which is not biologically mine, but I've been in her life since she was 4, and I love her like my own. And I had a baby with her mother, and then I had my son from another relationship when I met her mother. So I have 2 mothers of my children that I often have to communicate with. And my son's mother and I had a really difficult relationship, and it started to become good. And then with the situation that happened a few months ago, it's been strained. And the best I can do in that situation, my friend, like in that particular situation, it teaches us this in step 8 and 9, and 10, is that sometimes the best relationship possible I can have with that person is to just not communicate with them unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm not texting her asking her how her day is. I'm not following her on social media. I don't want to know what she's up to, and I don't want to be nosy anyway. We're way past that point, but I need to limit my communication with her to what is necessary for my children. And with my daughter's mother and I, again, it's a little more complex. We were very close. Even after we separated, we remained very good friends. But as a result of me overreacting to a situation and saying some really hurtful things years ago, it's been a struggle to rebuild that relationship. And my daughters were living with me half the time. And then when I moved back to, my hometown with their blessing, to try to do some community work here, she became very bitter and resentful about that. And I don't have any control over that. So I have to either dwell on that, or accept it and find peace with that and move forward. But again, I'm not reaching out to her and asking her random things. I only communicate with her when it's absolutely necessary for the children. And I often wait before I respond and call my sponsor and pray. Sometimes not even responding until the next day, just to make sure that I'm not reacting or responding out of emotion. That's what's been helpful for me, and I hope that helps you. Thank you for your question.
Great question. Thanks, Danny. Michael, would you like to come in?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Isaac, and thank you, John, for your amazing share. I could just feel your vulnerability and the honesty just oozing out of it now in every word. My question's similar to Danny's, in which it's two-part, and the first is what do you find has given you the most freedom? Is it love and tolerance? Is it vulnerability, or is it reliance on God Himself? And then the second part is what's your prayer and meditation routine look like? How do you do it consistently throughout the day, or is it morning and evening? And yeah, thanks again.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That's a great question. I would have to say out of what you mentioned, I would have to say reliance on God has been number one. First, I had to do what I needed to do to overcome the obsession of my addiction. And then once I, recovered from that physical ailment, I was able to seek a spiritual solution and follow those steps to get there. And I think, I heard in an Al-Anon meeting a couple years back, I think it was, a girl said, they say God never gives you more than you can handle, but that's not true. God always does, because you need to rely on Him, and you should. And that's something that I've learned is when I look back and I reflect and I do my inventories, it's only in the moments where I haven't relied on God before I've reacted or responded, that I end up in a worse situation, even when the outcome is awful and not anything close to what I had hoped for. I feel a strength to be able to get through that, and I feel a sense of serenity knowing that everything is going to be okay if I'm continuing to rely on God throughout that situation. But I believe that all of this program is important, and you only get to that place by following the path with the guidance of a sponsor and other people in this program. And sometimes we need to suffer a lot more, on our path before we have that awakening. And that's okay. So I think it's important to give yourself grace, because it took me 10 years to get to the place that I'm at now, to have the experiences that I had, because I needed to grow, and we're all, at the end of the day, we're all God's children, and we're all struggling, and no one is above anyone else. I never want, vulnerability helps me, because I find it keeps me humble, and it deflates the ego that I can so easily get, in situations. And then my prayer and meditation routine, I mean, every week I study spiritual literature with Donna and Young, who are, beautiful spirits that I feel very fortunate to have in my life. And again, I don't think it's a coincidence that God put them in my life at this point. I think I would not have been ready. I would have probably said, who the heck are you? Weirdos, get away from me. I don't want to read a book with you. Like, get out of here. Who are these people? These people are nuts. But I look forward to it, and I love that time together. That's something I do like on a weekly basis to sort of sharpen my skill set in the spiritual sense. And then daily, it really just depends. Again, this is an area where I have a lot, I try to express to people. It's just about establishing some type of routine. Some days I read 85 to 88 in the morning before I go to work or wherever I'm out to. Some days I listen to Muji's thank you prayer. Some days I listen to that prayer and I get frustrated by it, but I start my day thanking God that I have another day of life, and asking me to be as kind, selfless, and altruistic as possible in all my interactions, to stay sober, and to be a maximum service to him and his children. That's the prayer that I start my day with. And then my meditation may be a guided meditation on an app. It may be listening to a video on YouTube. It could be, reading some literature and inspirational things. It really just depends on whatever I have time for in the moment that day. And sometimes it's just complete silence with my eyes closed, and whatever comes up, comes up. And then at night, I always give thanks and ask, God to help me be better when I wake up tomorrow, and to look out for anyone suffering. And I do an inventory where I used to write it out, but I often just go through my day and reflect on decisions I've made. And if there's anything that stands out to me, it's something I bring to my sponsor, because it's clearly an area that I need to grow in. And now, as far as throughout the day, on my good days, I do check in with God. What should I do in this situation? I'm struggling right now. Can you help me be useful? Give me an assignment. And it was a couple weeks ago, I was really in a lull, and I really, I slipped, and I started to get like flirtatious with a girl in a meeting, and I just felt like sick to myself and so ashamed that I even, stooped to that level. And I talked to my sponsor, and then that night I got down on my knees and I prayed, and I asked God sincerely, please help me, because I don't want to be that sick version of me anymore. I want to be useful. Please give me an assignment. Please keep me busy. And it was like a couple days later, my niece was telling me she's pregnant, there's some not telling me she's pregnant, but there were medical scares where we had to be in the hospital. I ended up meeting a bunch of men at a meeting from the recovery home who asked me if I'd be willing to take them through the book. Like, God gave me those opportunities when I told God genuinely and sincerely, that I was ready for those. So I think the more that I communicate with God throughout the day and not wait to those moments of desperation, the less likely I'm getting into those pickles or predicaments over and over again. So I think it's important to note that I definitely don't 24/7 walk throughout life like Gandhi. but I have people that hold me accountable and responsible, and I feel my best when I'm loving, kind, and tolerant, and I'm leaning into God for guidance.
Thank you, Michael, for your question. Ella, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Isaac. Good evening, guys. I'm Ella and I'm an addict. John, thank you so much. Beautiful share. So my question is, in terms of your journey with your self-esteem, so how has that been? And then also, how has that affected your ability to show others unconditional love throughout your recovery? Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. That's a great question. First I would say again, it's a journey. They say in the literature, you straighten out spiritually and then you straighten out mentally and physically. I tried to do it many different ways throughout the years. I go to the gym every day. I'd eat nothing but spinach and scrambled eggs. I'd count my calories, all these different things to feel better, like physically about myself. But I was still like so sick and I was still seeking something because when I take the substances out, I seek to replace it with something that's going to give me relief. And I find unhealthy things when I don't replace it with the spiritual program and what I've been taught here. So for many years, I struggled, with lustful behaviors, gluttonous behaviors, selfish behaviors, all of those things because I was really not working on getting my spirit right. And I want to say too, it's come up to me basically in every question. Like, I feel ridiculous answering questions right now. I'd rather just have coffee with you guys than have a conversation. I'm just saying, like, no one's above anyone and no one knows more than anything. The only reason that maybe you're getting value from something I've had is maybe I've suffered in a way where I have, some perspective on something. And I hope that you're fortunate enough to not have to go through those things. And everyone's story is so different. And I know people have been through so many awful, horrible things in their life and they're able to find their way through that. But I just want to say, like, no one is above anyone else, and we all have something to share and something helpful to add. And I mean, I would never suggest that anyone take my advice because the best advice is no advice. But I would suggest that you continue to just follow the path and have grace and be patient with yourself and know that if you're following it the way it's laid out, you got the guidance of a sponsor and your goal is to be useful and help the people, as much as you can along that journey, that, God will bring you along and take care of you and hold your hand and teach you the things you need to learn to get to a place where, you can focus on self-esteem and build that up in a way that's healthy and demonstrate that to other people. So hopefully that helps. Thank you for your question.